wait. So we're starting. Share my screen. Okay, well, thank you. This is Andrew Williams Jr. and the Edfu Foundation is bringing you today's edition of GTA with Lloyd Helferty and team. So with that, I'm Andrew Williams Jr. and I'll turn the show over to you. Just that simple. There you go.
Thank you very much. So we didn't have specifically an agenda today necessarily. Somebody's making a little bit of noise there, but what I really would like to do is, I guess, mostly because Joan and Angela both need to leave the call. We'll get to talking about the CSV Gardens somewhere in Toronto if we can get to do that. But then I do want to have sort of a focused discussion as well with Stephanie with regard to the Learning Network, because I think that's vitally important. And there's an opportunity. When I wrote my message last night with this lady in Africa, as well as, of course, with Carlos and in Sierra Leone, to develop the digital platform. And so we had originally wanted to do to use the Easy Expo platform. We tried with Andrew, and Andrew was using that Easy Expo platform before. But we're trying to move with that platform still. And this lady that I met yesterday in Africa is on the network, on that discussion group that I'm a member of as well. And so that allows us to connect all those gardens digitally in a virtual environment that also has embedded trading functionality. So that really empowers those local community businesses to connect with each other and start trading locally, regionally, nationally, internationally, even if that's their goal, for instance, to start if they're at that point in time. Of course, every business will likely start small and local and move up to the stages where they're comfortable moving to. So anyway, let's start off with having a discussion. I think the last time we talked, there was some talk about if we can set up some kind of CSV garden, potentially even at one of the U of T campuses. And actually, I was thinking yesterday, I know that the University of Toronto had a student garden somewhere. I don't know where it was. I've never visited it, but I think it was run by one of the community organizations, one of the youth groups, student groups at U of T. That might be a possibility if we can have a discussion with that. So I'm just going to let people like Joan, who's the expert in this, and Stephanie, who's potentially offered to the University of Toronto to have those discussions. And hopefully we can come to a decision about, let's say, the process of engagement with U of T as a starting point, how we're going to move forward with them, and how we can build this out so that we can, the goal, I think, it is to create a network of these learning gardens, the Unity Gardens in Toronto, Greater Toronto area. We can start Toronto proper, potentially York Region, potentially Durham, potentially other communities around Toronto as well, depending on who's going to be excited about doing this with us.
Okay, so you want me to start? And so Stephanie, oh, hi, everyone. So Stephanie, I hope you didn't send me your PowerPoint because I did not receive it. Did you? No. From last week? Oh, okay, good. I was like, because I was looking for it. So we need to just set up an appointment to put some details in those. So I just want to clarify one thing. This is the GTA Unity group, right? GTA?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And so since it's that, does that mean the project has to be in the GTA?
I don't think so. I mean, what we're doing is we are trying to create a model
So
for
start in the
communities
GTA.
around the
Okay.
world.
Right. Yes, I
Well,
know all of that.
make it easy for us to do it here. But I mean, I've obviously last year when we created the collaborative tree planting program, we were focusing on Prince Edward County.
I'm just trying to
And it wasn't in
clarify.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify for the learning network. I know you're going to be global, I hope, right? Or
Mhm.
whatever. But this particular meeting is about the GTA. That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to
for the
clarify.
most part, what we're trying to do is we're sharing our discussion, but it's also about what can we do right here,
Okay, so
like
it's a,
locally.
yeah,
So this is the idea of
Yeah.
localization. So we're trying to tackle
okay.
global problems at the local level.
Yeah, so it would be good maybe in the future to have a broader meeting and have the different groups just sort of so that there's no confusion, because we would then key into your local group, right? Okay,
Mhm.
so GTA. So what Stephanie and I talked about before she did the thing, the PowerPoint presentation last time was about, we're just discussing what can happen, what can't happen, possibilities, I guess. So I think what we need to do is consider where, and one of the places, like you said, is U of T, if they have land. But it could be that we come up with the model and have U of T as the academic entity with the option of whether or not they can allocate land, if they have it, to do it, but not be closed to an idea of another place. So for example, there is, I guess my personal preference, personal motivation would be sort of somewhere like the Rouge, where we work with U of T as academia, have the Rouge as the space and the team to work with it, because it's much broader, and I usually like to work on broader things. I don't know, would that work? Like, I guess what I'm trying to ask Stephanie is, if we go to U of T and said, okay, here's a concept, but take away their responsibility of having given the land and let them volunteer on whether or not they have land that they want to give us, it is a better proposal than say, yeah, we're looking for land too, in addition to academic involvement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's many levels, and I think of course, it's crucial to be doing grassroots locally. I think that U of T is totally committed to planetary action, and I think there are many spaces actually that can be developed for this program, on U of T grounds and rooftops. I mean, Ryerson has such an extensive garden on the top of their rooftops on Young and Dundas. It's incredible. But U of T also has certain rooftops, forestry rooftop and certain other buildings, and nobody even knows about it except for maybe the few who are involved, which is a shame because that's what we want to turn around. Ryerson knew, because of their extensive rooftop garden that they have, like extensive. They have a market every week on the street where you can come and get anything that's developed there, but also they have beehives and they have honey and all kinds of entrepreneurial things from the school. I think it would be really great if we would. U of T is large enough that there are many spaces that we could gain and whatnot.
Great.
Yeah, and I also think it would be wise maybe to connect with George Brown, which has the School of Culinary Studies, and put that all together, which would connect Angela's piece in there too. So we're making it larger, and we're talking about GTA. We're trying to include the conversation. And also, University of Toronto has spaces outside of the downtown core, which are exclusively natural. Maybe there's some buildings there for certain courses and schools and whatnot, but there are different locations. So I see many opportunities outdoors and indoors on U of T grounds downtown and elsewhere.
Okay. So so then we have to put together a proposal to them I guess, right?
Well, that's the other thing. Who is them? Who are we going to be approaching? Are we going to be
Yeah.
approaching some people who are involved in education, climate action education at OISE, climate action education, and the school boards who are doing outdoor and forest schools already within, or and the Department of Forestry, and agriculture, and also health sciences, maybe. I mean, that's part of the, maybe not right away, but part of the equation. They would validate our knowing that it's healthy to increase our for our physiological health, mental health, to increase our time outside, not just sitting in, like, to change those spaces. But also, from the monk school up to global affairs, they could be involved too, because we're talking about food security.
Right.
So there's a lot of people that could come to the table.
So may I suggest then you and I could meet, similar to what Angela and I did, and we look at what are the goals, who, how do we get this to work? We want this to be GTA. So it's going to be broad, it's going to be multi-stakeholder. So who would be our strategic partners, and what would that look like? What would they bring to the table? Would that be a good exercise for you and I to do before we?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things for us to figure out.
And when I say her and I mean anybody else can join. I'm just saying that we need to come up with something to present to everybody, right? So that's our responsibility.
Yeah, well, we're trying to lead, I think, or a systemic change from the old model of schooling, and combined with, and the precipitous for sustainable wellness of the planet and each other, individuals and communities. And so the climate action and food security, locally, globally, is our primary focus. But climate action also means the internal climates of our individuals and our communities, in my opinion. That's what I come with from the education side. So we're trying to systemically change the school day and change some of the schools' focus on being able to be regenerative, teaching regenerative practices, right? Maybe.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think it is also about essentially bringing people out of poverty as well, and out of sort of fostering a more entrepreneurial spirit among I think among youth, especially that come out of school and are always just looking for jobs rather than thinking about creating jobs for themselves, their own communities, and looking for opportunities. And I think
for this
something
though,
unique
Lloyd,
about
for this though, Lloyd, we've agreed to look at 8 to 10-year-olds, right? So they're not going to be entrepreneurs. They're not going to be entrepreneurs. We can do critical thinking and those sorts of things. So
that's vital for leading into that. I think that's
I mean, we all agree on all of those concepts, but I mean, I'm trying to focus on the project to get a project, people buy into a project when it's defined, right? Especially institutions, especially. So all of the philosophies we all agree on. We agree on regenerative, we believe on community, we believe in all of that. So let's just put that to the side, that we understand that's the globe, right? I'm thinking in terms of designing a CSBG garden that institutions will like, community will support, but the 8 to 10-year-olds will learn something. Because at the end of the day, that's how we're going to change anything. So that's, I just want to be clear. I like definition, so we can start with the 8 to 10-year-olds, that doesn't mean that's where we end. It just means that's where we start. That's all
I
I'm
think
saying.
it's a fantastic strategy is to really focus on one age group. So if it's been decided, I know, but to start, of course. But now what we can do is as well as look at the curriculum. What is in the curriculum for that age group, and decide what are the elements of the learning programs as well that need to be taught in the garden, and that's what to present as you present the project to whatever stakeholders.
Well, I think that's also a long-term strategy, but that's not a starting strategy.
I think I think that you know, if we bring in U of T, you know, they always ignore anything but the school boards. You know, when we talked about the homeschooling population, this would be the first time that we're validating that growing population. And why is it growing? And it's so interesting that so many of the professors in education, their own children, so many of them went to alternative schools, didn't go to the public system, and switched and switched. And I think we're in a time where there's all kinds of foci that children can have, and there's certain shifts curricularly that need to happen as well. So with the school boards, a way to justify these kinds of endeavors, whether they're within walking distance of the school or busing to a special place, you know, we feel we have to justify by kind of matching the curriculum, which we could easily do. And that's what the school initiatives are already doing. But we're also trying to, so, well, you know, that's all good, because our agenda really is to kind of shift the classroom and increase knowledge and practice of young children who are, you know, growing up, so that, you know, systemically we can just kind of transfer this around the world, that we know this, like from an educational point of view. But the school, U of T, OISE, might want to start within they've got a like a lab school called the Jackman Institute. So they might want to start the experiment there, which I know they do have gardens, and that's very close to U of T downtown. And they already do have some outdoor initiatives. They might want to utilize those spaces. So, you know, those will all be conversations if we want to do it within the board or not. If they offer that opportunity right away. And I do know a lot of the schools in different boards are doing these kinds of initiatives. So we need to sit down and iron that out. And we kind of have to have an idea of what we want, because this initiative is also about peace building and bridging communities. So I don't want it only to be curricularly. I want a child to be able to hug a tree and not have to know the circumference, or just be able to lay down in the grass and stare or sleep or listen to their music or hang out with their friends, because those spaces don't really exist anymore. It's very sad. But also when you don't have kind of organized opportunities, which I think we should, like you can plant this here, you can plant that there, you can, you know, make salads here, or like whatever we're doing, or, you know, whatever. I think there should be lots of opportunities for children to kind of ebb and flow from different opportunities, so that will allow a child to really take in just staring at a tree and the different shades of green, or just be and not be always doing like we always are. So I think that's important, because when whether they're doing an activity, a curricular activity or not, what's important, I think, so that we can bridge community, is have opportunities for kids to just be able to chat and play the music and play music even.
Yeah, actually it reminds me, if especially I think when Angela mentioned at first about the this company, I guess that's providing food to the very young children in the daycares. Because my wife is a daycare worker. Actually, I think I might have mentioned it before, but she had been taught in Taiwan, and in Taiwan classrooms in the daycares, all teachers need to know how to play a keyboard and play a piano, because music is just central to the functioning of the classroom. They use that all the time to help to sort of coordinate the kids. So they play a certain song and the kids know what that means and what they need to do. They get sort of ingrained with music and it's part of the culture in those classrooms, and it's not something we see here, for instance. And she was a little bit taken aback by the fact that there's no music in any of our classrooms.
Well, we've lost a
As
lot
one
of the
example.
basics. We have lost a lot of the basics, and right now we're trying to restore something that we've intuitively known worldwide, globally, but that's in jeopardy, like grave jeopardy, and we're trying to attend to that. But yeah, all those things, music, dance, they're so important developmentally and also to connect communities.
So here's where I'm at. I think that Global Unity as a group needs to come up with their overall services and the different groups that do that. For me, I'd like to focus on the CSBG garden, how to grow those kinds of skills, because that's what we are. Obviously believe in all of the other things, but if other groups are doing that, that's your guys' jobs to bring them in. We'll partner with them, but in order to get, that's not my role. My role is to develop the garden, get a space, the funding, and start a process. That's what I'm going to be focusing on. If that's not satisfactory, then, but that's what I'm focusing on. All of the overall stuff I believe in, I support them. And I would love for other groups to do them, but that's not what I'm offering from FBSC right now, if that's clear.
So definitely, I've always known, and you've always made clear that you are a service provider, and that's what you're here to do, is to help to establish these gardens. And we've talked about it obviously for years and years and years about trying to establish at least one of your CSB gardens, and I really want to support and do this, because we seem to have tried, but I'm hoping things are coming finally.
Well, we've done them in Africa and stuff, but you know, and
this is the toughest place to do it. Huh?
No, because what ends up happening is, like I told the other gardens, I said, you have to trust me on focusing and understand that, you know, I'm asking for results, and they ended up doing it. And because they wanted, oh, well, we need to do, you know, colonialism. And I said, it will address it when you have something successful. There's nothing better than success. Sorry. You can talk all you want, and it sounds good. I want to say that all of the things we discuss, I'm in. That's not my, I just want to do a project, and then we can branch out.
Let's do it.
Yeah, first steps, we're going to figure out who we're going to talk to, what we want, and think about land that we want, what we're talking about, GTA, otherwise, and we could talk about specific pieces of land, and people who we're talking to might also have suggestions of what to do. So I think those are our first 3 steps, and we can meet to discuss it, you know.
Might I suggest that I may come back in? It's one of my, it's IEEE education, which I'm one of the leads. So once I do my part, if it's good, I may come back in. I'm going to say, sorry, I want to hear the other presentations, you guys. So I'm going to try to come back in if it all goes well. So I do have to run though, but I will be back. So Stephanie, if I don't come back, can we connect then sometime this week to maybe develop some of these things and put some way forward.
Yeah,
And Angela.
I'll equally like to add that my presentation, I think, will help in your project too, because I really outlined the steps that you can use on your reflections to get to establish a roadmap for your project.
Wonderful.
So I would love to share that with you.
And I'd like to meet, maybe we could, if I don't come back, maybe we could meet separately as well, if that's all right.
All right.
So Angela, I did send you that document.
Yes, I got that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think if we, before our meeting next week, if we could just connect just to maybe synthesize that a little bit more, because there was a lot of discussions and we've changed a couple of things in terms of seasons. So maybe if we could just more focus on the season since we've made that decision before next Monday, so we can move the way forward. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Okay, I might be back. Sorry.
Thank you, Joan.
I also
I guess
going as well.
you have to get going as well, Angela. Okay, great.
Just 10:30 because I thought that was kind of in between the two, but 11:30 is when I started. So, but I'll be back if I can. If not, I'll talk to you guys soon.
Yes, thank you.
Bye, Angela.
Bye.
So I'm hoping to actually hear from Ryan, because it seems like Ryan was brought in by Angela, but we don't know Ryan. So perhaps you could introduce yourself.
Love to share. Yeah, absolutely. So I've been on a journey of about 10 years of learning how to heal the body, connecting with Aboriginal knowledge, and really just getting mentally and physically well. So this has led me literally around the world in many aspects. And I've encountered just tons of really great people. So yeah, I agree with everything you guys are saying so far. And the main reason I'm here, I guess, is because I'm working for a nonprofit called Seeds for Eco Communities. And basically they've been around for at least 10 years and they create educational material and they're really multi-pronged. I'm still learning to understand what it is they actually do, but they've generated hundreds upon hundreds of different pieces of content, whether that's graphical illustrations, documents, blogs, videos, animations, you name it. They're just pumping out all this material that could help anyone from a farmer to a school to an individual to a business. They're just hitting every possible target when it comes to sustainable practices and lowering the ecological footprint. And there's a huge emphasis on gardening with that. So the founder, Laura, you would probably want to talk to her about what she could actually help contribute. But yeah, that's sort of what I'm here representing, like a really holistic vision and approach.
So where are they based? Like,
they are, they're, what's the name of the town? It's, I guess it's near Belleville. Yeah.
Oh, they're in Ontario as well.
Yeah. And they're going pretty international with their approach. They're getting lots of grants and things are going really well for them.
That sounds perfect. So, and I had a question. Just like it went out of my head there. So where are you based yourself as well? Like you in Toronto?
I'm really far north. I'm in Ontario, but north of North Bay, actually, like 2 hours north of North Bay. Yeah.
Actually, I know a little bit about Northern Ontario.
Cool.
Because my father's, my mother's grandfather, bought a property, and he was up in Malartic-Abitibi on the Quebec side of the border. So when you drive up Highway 11 all the way, and then when it hits, I think, Sudbury or something like that, and starts going west, I do that route usually in the summer, but head east across the Quebec border. So I know about like Temiskaming. Those.
Yeah, that's where I am, Temiskaming Shores. Yeah.
Oh, you're in Temiskaming Shores. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do as well, I guess I can ask others, if they want to have any comments, I guess Bruce is here as well. But then if Bruce wants to just listen in, that's fine. But I would like to specifically talk to Stephanie. But then Fule, do you want to wait to see if Joan comes back, or do you want to present your what you wanted to say right now? We are being recorded.
Well, actually, I'd like to suggest, because we are being recorded, that Fule might make her presentation now. If that's okay with you, Fule, are you prepared?
Yes, I'm prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you don't mind, you can make me co-host. That way I
Sure.
can share my screen.
You can share your screen anyway, but I'll make you co-host as well.
Oh, okay. I didn't even notice that. Thank you. I was asking for too much.
You already have it. Yes, yes, and yes is all I'll ever tell you.
Thank you. Okay. Come on.
Oh, and Fule, please begin your introduction by introducing yourself,
Okay.
and then your organization,
Mm-hmm.
and then your contact information. Thank you.
All right. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So my name's Fule Chi B. I'm originally from Cameroon, currently residing in Montreal, Canada, with my husband and 5 kids since 4 years now. My academic background is in agricultural economics. I got a master's degree in agricultural economics from the University of Belgium, the Catholic University of Belgium and Sweden. Back in my country, I have trained agricultural entrepreneurs, and we realized, myself and a few colleagues realized, that there was a need to support the agripreneurs we trained to access inputs, capital, machinery to start off their businesses. And so we created this organization called the Association of Agripreneurs for Development. When I found myself in Canada, I decided to register it here, because back at home was taking so long to make it legal. And even up to now, we do not yet have a legal status in Cameroon, but it is in progress. So we are registered in Quebec since 2018. We have been supporting agricultural entrepreneurs back in Cameroon to identify needs, their agribusiness needs, and support them to get funds to expand their businesses. And we equally give a climate smart solutions approach to their needs. So that's a little bit about Association of Agripreneurs. Our website is www.agrifordev.org. I'm presenting to you our strategic plan just for 1 year, because I would like for us to create a roadmap for the work we can do from now to June 2022. So there is equally possibility of extending it to 5 years. But for today, let's focus on 1 year, on the next 12 months. So the vision of Agri4Dev: we see a world where natural resources are used in an efficient and sustainable manner to create wealth and well-being for current and future generations. Our mission is to support agripreneurs to achieve life and food security through climate-smart agriculture and emergency response. how do I do this? Okay. So we have 3 major objectives. Our first objective is to promote the sustainable supply of safe food. Our second objective is to promote the safety and security of agripreneurs and their families. And our third objective is to reduce the concentration of greenhouse gases through tree planting. So we have these 3 areas of intervention. For each of them, we have programs and projects. And today we'll be focusing only on the food security pillar. And one of the projects which we will be addressing today is Climate Smart Gardens for Learning program. So let us look at some statistics. Here in Canada, in 2018, we had 193,000 farms, and these farms cover about 64 million hectares. That is about 7% of Canada's land area. These farms are concentrated across the prairies and southern Ontario. The average farm size doubled over the last 50 years. And what was the contributing factor to this? It was due to consolidation and technological advances. So I would like us to underline the word technological advances. So by 2018, we counted about 265,000 people employed in primary agriculture in Canada. That is about less than 1% of Canada's population. So I would equally like us to underline that aspect, that less than 1% of Canada's food, these resources, land resources, is in the hands of just 1% of the population. Another statistics that I would like us to look at is the level of greenhouse gas emissions from the agricultural sector. We have, as if nothing is being done, we have trends that are increasing. The total emissions of greenhouse gases from the agricultural sector in Canada is actually on a rise. That's as of 2015. It's actually on a rise. And the highest contributor has been crop production. So we have some good job that is being done in the sector of animal production. But even the soil carbon content is equally very low. And hopefully, perhaps in 2021, we might be seeing some rise. But as of 2015, where we got our data, it was not good at all. So given that agriculture contributes 10% to the concentration of greenhouse gases, Agri4Dev has things that it is important to address this issue at this level to support the agricultural sector to bring this 10% to close to zero. And how can we do that? The first thing that we realize is that we need to increase the number of people that are in this sector. If we cannot continue basing our lives on just 1% of the population. So we underlined, the first thing we underlined was biosynthetic foods because of technological advances. we have named, and what has this led to? This has led to changing diets, and people are changing their preferences. And a lot of job has been done. I want to equally say kudos to many people, especially from the government to the civil society. They have done a lot to resolve this issue. For example, in Quebec, we have at the municipal level what we call the eco-quartiers. Eco-quartiers are like the government initiatives where they promote environmental protection through many programs. But more especially what I see them do in our schools to initiate the young children is that they give theoretical lessons and equally practical lessons to our primary school kids. But the teenagers and the young adults are left out of the picture. So Agri4Dev wants to address this gap. So we are targeting the children or teenagers who are age 15 to 24. They make up 10% of the Canadian population. So we intend to work with academic institutions. And what we want to do is we want to create climate smart gardens for learning. So here we are discussing the project. The goal of the project is to create a network of climate smart gardens on at least one academic campus in all 51 Francophonie member countries. So at the end of the day, we should have a network created for all these 51 Francophonie member countries. Why are we doing this? We want to take interest in combating climate change by growing their own food using biodegradable and organic farm inputs. So hopefully we are going to reduce the level of greenhouse gases in the air. And we are equally going to improve on the health of our young generation. So we equally have the output. What do we want to produce from this is a climate smart garden on each campus, member campus of the network, and equally train. We want to give training as well to at least 50 students on each campus. So we have all these activities. We are going to go in depth on each of these activities in the next slides. So for Montreal, we are talking with previously we talked about 51 countries. For Montreal, what do we want to do? We want to create a national Agri4Dev team, which already exists here in Montreal. We want to get at least one high school or college to participate. We'll have to seek funds, and we think that this can be better handled by the Global Unity Business Group. We have to prepare a curriculum and give training, and we think that will be handled by the Unity Network GTA. We want to create a garden. This garden will be handled by Agri4Dev, the Unity Network, and the students. We want to organize a public event around the gardens. We want to coordinate all the activities of participants and then equally monitor and evaluate all our projects. So we are giving ourselves October 2021 timeline to get to at least 10 countries if we can do this right, by February 2022, we get to 20 countries, and by June 2022, we get to all 51 countries. I know this is very, very ambitious, but we'll give it a try. So coming to Montreal in particular, this is a breakdown of the activities and the milestones we wish to accomplish. So we said if we get to work today and say we want to start finding schools that can participate in this project, by October of this year, we would have sent requests to all secondary schools and colleges here in Montreal. And hopefully at least one school signs an MOU, and we start drawing a strategic plan for our activities. So by February 2022, we'll do a follow-up, we'll be doing follow-up with the other institutions to see if they change their minds. And then by June 2022, we are hoping to have at least a second institution that comes on board. Then the fund seeking aspect of it, we are expecting that the Global Unity Business Group will be working at their own end so that by October 2021, there are funds available for the first garden, for the creation of the first garden. And then by June 2022, we have funds available for the second garden in Montreal. Then regarding the training package, we are hoping that the Unity Network GTA will assemble all training requirements, materials, all that kind of stuff by October. And then by February, they would already start giving training, which will be all theoretical because that will be during the winter period. And by March, April, May, there will now be the creation of the garden, since that will be spring. And then we can assemble all training requirements for the second garden by June 2022. So going to the creation of the garden itself, yeah, we hope to work hand in hand, all the three institutions, Agri4Dev, the Global Unity Business Group, Unity Network GTA, and the students. We are going to, I think it is the authorities at this level who is going to allocate the land that we are going to use. And then by February 2022, hopefully we will start preparing the land and purchase all the inputs. And then by June 2022, our garden must have been flourishing by then. Then regarding the organization of public events, we intend to organize an event, it might be virtual or not, in October. And this event will be on campus. It will be connecting other gardens and other participants around the world. So the event properly, in details, will be decided by all the participants, including the students, what we want the event to look like. And just to create a buzz around CS, climate smart gardens. And then by June 2022, we are going to organize a second event. Then the coordination of activities, reports will be delivered by Agri4Dev team on a continuous basis. And then there will be some monitoring and evaluation done by our team as well as the project unfolds. So after we have year one, we have got to the end of year one, we are thinking of 3 options. The first option would be to extend this model to other parts of Quebec. The second option would be perhaps to introduce grass-fed poultry farming, or perhaps another variation of climate smart gardening. I've heard you talk about roof gardening. I don't know what that is about. So, but there are all these possibilities. There's a possibility of introducing tree planting to the same group, age group. And we can keep thinking of other ways to improve on our current situation. Thank you very much. I don't know why I got nervous.
Well, thank you. That was an excellent presentation. Thank you so very much.
I got nervous, as if I was doing a thesis.
It was good. It was good.
Thank you.
So I know you're mentioning you mentioned 51 members of the Francophonie, and I'm always saying 88 because I guess I include all of the associate members and such like that. Okay. So, but I guess there's 51 core members that are full members.
There are how many, Lloyd?
I say 88 because that's kind of the number that pops up when you Google it, because that includes all the associate members and like sort of affiliate members and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
Okay.
I think that the actual paid up members may be less. The other thing about I was going to mention around the roof gardens, there's actually some really interesting stuff going on in Montreal that you may want to explore with regard to a roof garden. So I forget the name of the company now, but there's an interesting company there that has a very unique roof garden system that you may be able to even visit.
Yes, Joan, you have your hand raised.
Great, thank you. I have to run again. My friend is speaking at 12:30. Since he doesn't start to speak until 12:30, because I wanted to hear Fule's presentation. So great roadmap. So I have a lot of questions in terms of implementation. I think we need to talk. One of the clarifications I want to ask you is the name of your organization is Agro for Development.
Yes.
For some strange reason, I thought your email said agripreneur.
Yes.
Am I incorrect? Okay, well, there's nothing in your presentation that promotes entrepreneurship. So that's why I'm asking.
Okay, I just presented one of several projects.
Okay. I just wanted to know. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to clarify, because the presentation is like a community garden project. So is that what the project is to create sort of a gardens for the community using youth? Is that right?
Right.
Okay, great. So so you did. Where does the entrepreneurship part come in at a point?
I didn't think a lot about that, but this is what I have in the back of my mind. We want to introduce this to the youth so that when they get independent out of their parents' roofs, they will go to their own homes, become landlords, become tenants. They would create these gardens in their living space. And this to us is what we call entrepreneurship, because we measure profit in 2 ways. The profit is monetary and it is non-monetary. So enterprising to us is doing anything for profit. And we also value the non-monetary aspect of it. So I just
well, entrepreneurship is about making money, not necessarily making profit. So that's the first thing. So the profit is how you use it. So you can have a social mission, and we, you know, anyway, we can get into a discussion around that. In terms of I'd be happy to work with you, by the way, to offer our model. I hope that you were considering that. But I guess you have to speak with the group on what the actual roles are in terms of how much do you need to start the gardens? Have you identified what your budget is? Who are these entrepreneurs? Who are these youth? Do you have a group of youth that you're working with already? You know, what is your catchment area for your organization? That's the other question I wanted to ask.
For this particular project?
No, for your organization, period.
Cameroon.
So
Cameroon?
It is Cameroon?
Yes.
So your organization is registered in Cameroon or Canada?
Canada.
Okay, to carry business on in Cameroon.
We have a chapter in Cameroon.
Okay, so your business is like an association, your organization is like an association. Okay, great.
Right.
So you're able to do that. Okay, I just want to make sure, because you know, I work with lots of groups, and then if their mandates says this is the area you have to work in, and it's like, oh my gosh. So I asked these questions right at the beginning now. Yeah. Okay, so that's great. And do you only work in French?
No, both languages.
Okay. And so if in terms of if we were to offer you the curriculum, I guess I'll speak with Lloyd and the group, we can make that decision. What about translation costs?
I think we are competent enough to do that.
Okay.
We are perfectly bilingual.
Okay. Oh, good. So, all right. Well, I have to run again because my friend's going to present now. But I'm glad I saw your presentation. Great. And sorry, everyone, I'm just keep popping in and out, but it's because I'm so curious to know what's happening. So,
yeah. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Stephanie, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah, no, it was a great presentation. And one of the areas you talked about, training, and I see that there's two areas of training that will be, well, maybe not two areas, but more your background, your personal background, and obviously the companies and associations that you're associated with will, for the very first time, conceivably be influencing curriculum, be influencing that this is something important for kids to do, for people to do, for communities to do, that this is something we have to do, and which we all know. So we're all together, their network, it's shifting that into action, new action steps. But you specifically we will need to sit down and discuss action steps as to what are the first steps that children, youth, communities, what are the first things that they should be planting or they should be learning, or, you know, and we don't want to make it forced, you know, we want to make it experiential. We don't want it only to be theory, even in the winter months. And perhaps that's an opportunity to bring things indoors and teach Canadians especially how to be creating food security indoors, in schools, in homes, maybe in greenhouses around schools or communities. So that will be, that's your expertise as to what would be important first steps for community sustenance. You know, like, and what's easiest and what is transferable, you know, to the children of all ages, to people of all ages, that they, for their first steps to get their hands wet, what is valuable to us, that people learn how to grow a bean, or that we learn how to grow tomatoes, or, you know, like what is valuable to a society, to a community, the first steps, what's easy, what's affordable, what can be done inside, outside. So lots of things regarding that, which we could talk about at another time. But those are, so for me, I mean, that's a long way down the line. We want funding, we want to structure this, we want to get a school or two or on board. We want to be able to communicate this and have joint programs around the world with different universities, Francophone and otherwise, and, you know, transmit this knowledge. So that, yeah, it's really great. So it's
this
important.
reminds me that sort of I attended a meeting of the Global Women's Development Network just yesterday. Was it yesterday or Monday? No, I guess it was yesterday. And there were some interesting things said. We actually, I learned actually there's one lady that I met before who's in here in the Toronto area as well, that maybe we want to bring into this conversation as well, because what they're doing in Pakistan is very interesting. So the Global Women's Development Network, based out of Pakistan through the Community Development Foundation, is doing some really good work. They're really bridging a lot of the schools there across that country. And so I'm hoping that that will be a sort of a cornerstone as well of as we develop this network. And we really do focus on the female humanitarian entrepreneurs. So this is really about empowering the women, looking at the SDGs. I believe it's SDG 5. And so the idea is that we'd like to connect these networks through the women's networks as well. That's sort of a big focus. So you're muted again, Steph.
Thank you. So Stephanie, you want us to identify the action steps, like what priority crops do we begin with and all of that. And the second question you asked, you said you had two, so I didn't get the second.
Yeah, no, you don't have to do this now, but I'm just saying, once we get into it, you would be amongst the people to know. We'd really have to think, because we're really taking different kind of steps. We're not getting farmers, which is only unfortunately 1% of the Canadian population. We're trying to increase that number so that we could have sustainable practices locally, Montreal, GTA, Canada, and of course around the world. So what would we suggest, you know, is our valuable, measurable first things, you know, that, not that I want to measure anything that a child is doing, but often to get funding, you have to have some goals. I don't want to measure if a child successfully grew a tomato or was able to grow 5 tomatoes because there's 5 members in their household. But I would want to have thought as to what are some practical gardening, planting, you know, exposures that children could have, that they could come home and say, I know how to do this and I'd like to try, or at least tend to it in their communities, in their community gardens, and, you know, be able to say, you know, I did this and I did that and I did this, you know. So I don't know if it's one thing, you know, like I don't know what that will look like, but what are the priorities for growing and planting? And I guess that will be a combination of what will be fruitful and easy to grow throughout the year, and also what could be abundant for households and communities. So that's just something to think about, like right away. I thought, like,
thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll sleep on that. And I equally like Joan's contribution, where she said what's the entrepreneurial component of it. I'm seeing like we can add a phase 2 to the project. Say phase 1 is just these community gardens, how do you garden and all of that, and then we have a phase 2 with the same institution, hopefully the same kids, where now we are teaching them how to make this a business.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Mm-hmm.
So that I think for me, I think that's the critical part, is if we're going to feed our communities, if we're gonna feed ourselves and create businesses out of these that to be sustainable, you can't always just be looking for money, right, and getting grants or whatever. You need to build a business model.
Right.
But you can start introducing youth and kids to the concepts around entrepreneurship, even at the young age. And I think that sort of bringing that entrepreneurial thinking pattern is important, even with the younger children, so that there's not this sort of mentality of dependency to think that, well, farmers grow our food and that's just the way it is, and I don't want to be a farmer, and that's just hard work and I don't want to do that for a living. And I think that's the mentality of most kids, right? They just like, oh, I don't want to be a farmer. I'm going to do whatever, lawyer, doctor, and make a lot of money.
Right.
Without ever thinking that they can actually, that can be a business that can potentially be a lucrative business as well.
So what would you suggest as a way forward?
So the other thing, I guess, at this point, what I'm doing right now, so I'm doing several things at this point. And I'm just, so right now what I'm doing is we are renaming now. So we had this pandemic vocabulary for all our groups. So I'm renaming all those groups. So turning them, creating Unity Network. I do want to have a set up a time to have a call with this other lady in Africa, plus Carlos, about establishing the virtual network. And that's actually a good starting point to get things going.
Yes.
Because we can create both our local network and as well as the international connections. And you can start identifying actually resources and people in our own community as well as internationally that can help out to build even some of the content that we may want to deliver. I was going to actually mention as well from the meeting just yesterday what they're doing in Pakistan. They're focusing on silkworms to actually produce silk in homes. And so raising silkworms, and as well, I believe what it is, it's not honey, it's something, it's, I was thinking potatoes. Potatoes is an easy one to be done at home in those potato barrels. But they're also doing, oh, I forget it, I just had it earlier. But it was something fairly simple that can be done just in their own homes. Right? And it was just something that just like, okay, you can create this product and sell it to your neighbors and such things like that.
Okay.
So those are the types of things we want to maybe focus on initially that can be done at the really home level as the starting point to teach people about how to do these types of things.
Okay.
But
so
I think that the network creation is really important, because that creating the network, creating that virtual network also connects us to the corporations and to the businesses.
Yeah, I have something to say about that. When we do not have a clear goal that we want to achieve, it is very difficult for people to understand us and to even take interest in what we are saying. So I give, for example, the few people I introduced to you from Cameroon. They need a clear roadmap. What is it we want to achieve? What's the timeline? What is it that you can support us to achieve this and all of that? So my suggestion is that first of all, we sign some sort of agreement between Agri4Dev, your organization. That's for me the first thing that we can do. Secondly, we design our plan very clearly that we can easily share with people to say, this is exactly what we want to achieve. You can slightly adapt it to your context, your local context, and then we give them now the room to start to run with it, and they start implementing. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, well, we're evolving. I mean, we've been having discussions for many months already, but we're actually the discussion with regard to our core business, what we are going to be offering, is actually going to happen tomorrow.
Okay.
So we internally we haven't really come up with the plan ourselves. So like, there's nothing to offer yet. Really, we haven't built our website. We're not incorporated yet. We would like to incorporate as a Canadian organization, Canadian company, but right now it's just a coalition of businesses. So I have a business called Biochar Consulting. I'm a sole proprietor, and then our other partners have different businesses as well. So what we're doing is coming together to create an organization that can manage a network. So we sort of have a long-term vision, but we don't have the short-term goals set yet. So we know the need is there, sort of like what Stephanie was saying earlier. We know the need is there. We're figuring out how to do that through this dynamic process of these conversations, and then figuring out like what is our specific role, each of us, in achieving that outcome. So the long-term goal, of course, is transformation toward creating a regenerative society, I guess, as a sort of an overarching goal. How much time do we have to do that? Well, some people say somewhere between 2030 and 2050. So let's say within the next 10 to 30 years to sort of transform society if we're going to survive on this planet, really. So there's this, obviously, there's huge focus now on climate and reducing emissions. So that's one of the ways we're going to adapt is to reduce emissions by transforming our transportation systems and our energy systems and all of these things. That's not our goal. Our goal is to look at the food side of things, because very few people are looking at the transformation of the food and agricultural systems, except in the context of the existing industrial food production paradigm. They're not really looking at sort of the community-based, smaller scale. Sort of what Joan's been focusing on, of course, is like entrepreneurship at the local level, from the household even, or community-based, and that's what the Victory Gardens originally were all about, way back, like she mentions all the time, is World War I. When they created the original Victory Gardens program, it was because the men went off to war and took all the horses with them, and the women were left with pretty much nothing, and they had to figure out how to feed themselves. So they built this whole Victory Gardens program. So this is sort of the self-sufficiency idea. Like, are we really going to create a food system, a global food system? And this is what the corporations are doing, and this is what the big agro-businesses are doing, is creating a system that we're completely dependent on, like you said, the 1% of farmers. So we're not learning, we're not understanding how to grow, in case that system somehow collapses or otherwise, or because of climate change, there are scarcities, real scarcities, not these virtual scarcities that are created by the trading systems we've developed. So people
Thank
need
you
to
very
learn.
much.
But the idea is that what we're trying to do is figure out what are the business offerings that we can have as a business group. So we're creating the business groups kind of before we even understand what are the business components that we can offer. So one of the components, of course, is the network. So the network of networks, right? And creating the network of networks in a virtual space that can also connect us to potential funders, potential corporations that support what we're trying to do, the localization of the SDGs, and may be willing to brand what you're doing, let's say in Montreal, put their logo on your, let's say your educational materials and pay you for that out of their marketing budget, right? So that's a conversation that's happening within the Global Unity Business Group, where we're engaging with those 10, 12,000 or so UN Global Compact members eventually. That's the idea, is, and engaging with the governments and engaging with the corporations, the governments, the other NGOs, and the foundations, for instance.
Meaning that if I've understood you clearly, you are still work in progress. Therefore, we need to wait. At Agri4Dev, we need to wait at least for your meeting tomorrow, for you to give us, for you to tell us, give us a go ahead. I want to give, for example, today I was speaking with my friend in Niger. Niger is somehow in North Africa. And I told him about the project of the same project I've just presented to you now. And he says, I need a document. He's at the government level. He says, I need a document and I don't have time. I don't have time to play around. I need something serious. If this is going to be something serious, let's do it, you know? So what I'm saying is, if I'm going to contact people, I'm contacting people with, I'm not asking them, let us think about this. I'm telling them, let us do this. So for that reason, I would have to end here with at our own level and wait until you have decided what it is you want to achieve, what it is you are expecting from Agri4Dev, and then we can continue from there.
So the idea is that what we're doing is building this network, as I said, that will connect hopefully all the funders, because there's a huge, obviously, focus on climate action. So that's the big thing that we've been trying to do, is leverage our food system to achieve climate action.
Oh my God.
So the idea is that what we want to do is get all of those people in the same room, basically this virtual rooms, so that we can have the conversation with the funders, especially, and the people with the money who are looking for projects, who are looking for the solution, so that they're able to
at Agri4Dev,
connect.
We are very good at designing projects. We are very good at designing projects, and one of the strengths we have, and I in particular as an individual I have, is I like the doing aspect. The speaking aspect, I'm not too good at it. So once we are clear about what we should do, we are going to do it. I would like us to be very clear on Agri4Dev's role is to implement. We can design the projects, we can do the implementation, we can do the evaluation and the monitoring of the projects, we can do all those, but we need to be clear in our minds, what is it we want to achieve?
In that regard, if I may, Fule, tomorrow, if you could be so kind as to make your presentation to the group tomorrow, because in that, my hope is that we can find supporters for what you're doing, no matter where they come from.
Okay.
And so making your presentation available to a wider group is something I think will be very important to you. Secondarily, I believe Joan asked you to connect with her directly. Stephanie may want to connect with you directly. We all may want to work with you directly. So please understand this forum is intended also to connect you together with people who can move like you want to move.
Mhm. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, it's very important because there are people that we're not aware of. There's sort of the unknown unknowns out there that are looking for these kind of things that you're doing. As long as there's an opportunity for them, especially to brand and show their support for this, they're willing to put in some funding to make it happen.
I was thinking that, as suggested to Fule, that we will need to come up with a plan, a practical, things that, children and communities will be able to walk away with, practical practices, and transferable practices, even not just locally around their school, around this project, these gardens, but also to transfer to their house. But it's also really crucial, especially if the universities are involved all over, but also for planetary reconciliation, especially, and in Canada, it will be really important for us to consult with our Indigenous elders and consult on what has already been successful for thousands of years in the cold climates of North America, for instance, and Canada. What have been successful and easy, and what are the processes to honor the Indigenous wisdoms, but also to not have to recreate the wheel. Like those wisdoms locally are known in whatever parts of the world, and particularly in the GTA. And I think it would be wise for us to include, and as I said, from Natural Curiosity, a major person from U of T and representing Canadian and Ontario Indigenous wisdom. We already have that relationship. So I think that will be important because that's an important part of Indigenous identity, the food systems, the regenerative food systems, and healthy food systems, not processed and shipped, both for internal consumption, but also for affecting the soil and the waters, through transport and emissions and whatnot. So we do have that person already at the University of Toronto, OISE. I have that relationship, and I beg to say that every university around the world is starting to have, if they don't, an Indigenous education network of some sorts, and they should be included in the conversation. They could be included in the conversation.
Yeah, so obviously we're using a lot of word of mouth at this point in time, but we've got to, once we have hopefully a more robust network, especially through the virtual platform, we can start reaching out more, I guess, in a way that's more rigorous. Just like Fule said, you can create a letter of invitation and send it out to all of the schools you identify, or all of the educators that you think should be part of this discussion as well, in whatever institution. Just like Stephanie had said, yes, let's connect U of T with Ryerson, with Humber, with whatever, all the other schools that have sort of specialized programs in different aspects of this, so we can expand that network. And so that is the really important thing in terms of establishing the virtual network, so we have somewhere to invite somebody to. So I'm inviting people, for instance, to join a Facebook group, or join a LinkedIn group, or these social media things. That, I think, is not quite the powerful networking tool that we need. So that's why we're looking at the Easy Expo tool. And so that is it's designed specifically to host conferences. But beyond the conference hosting, so like you have an event, let's say, like every year in Toronto, they have a big, like the Toronto Conference Center, right? They have these big conferences all the time, or at the exhibition place, these big conferences, one-off events. The difference between the virtual conference platform and those one-off events, like they have at the conference centers and such things like that, is that the virtual events, people can set up booths to showcase their businesses, but then it becomes 24 hours a day, 365 days a year that people can access your booth and your business. And so now you have a virtual conference space all year long, all 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, forever, essentially. And that allows companies and even small businesses, small community groups, to set up a booth in that virtual space and have that virtual presence and networking. So you're not just going to a single event, you're now in an event that will be continuous. And so you can develop those network connections throughout the entire year, any time of day. You can contact some of the other businesses, some of the other organizations, because it's not just businesses. It's civil society organizations. It's all the relevant stakeholders can actually have these virtual booths at the virtual sort of conference room. And then you can start connecting all the networks. And this is where the network of networks can be developed in the virtual spaces. And again, connecting gardens, so the physical gardens within the virtual spaces. So you can create rooms. So within a virtual conference space, there's actually no limitation in terms of physical space. So you can actually create a conference room that's just a network of the gardens, for instance, and another conference room that's just a network of the learning institutions and the schools and the universities and everything around the world. And so another space which is just the, let's say, vertical farming business, and another space that's just let's say the companies that are offering goods and services to those other businesses or the community-based organizations. So you can have all of this, but they're all connected and they're all interconnected in those virtual spaces, which are sort of endless.
Okay.
And this is kind of what we want to try to do.
Thank you. That is really the idea, networking. Well, I have another event to catch. I'm very, very grateful for your time, for your input. Yes, thank you so much.
So did you have any last words, either Stephanie or Andrew or Bruce or Ryan?
Yeah, I guess the only final words are, like, we kind of know the destination of where we want to go, and that's great. You know what our priorities are. Our priorities are, you know, as we said, to climate action so that we can have a planet. And so we might want to have like a 20-year plan, 10-year plan for this. And then, you know, the actual regenerative parts, school parts, local at school, travel, like traveling to different places, and what are, you know, all those. Yeah, so I think we know where we want to go, and we're starting to fill in all the steps of getting there. So I think it's great. And I think all of us brings, you know, different parts, and having the virtual kind of hub for everything is great, you know, whether it be from a for-profit, whether it be for-profit or whether it be for education, which may or may not be for-profit or whatnot, but an education model, a number of things happening within that platform is really great, you know, just from to be able to increase the conversation on our particular goals, which are large and attainable.
Yeah, I've actually, I think that that idea of attainable. So when I started on this journey years ago, I thought, well, okay, we've got this idea around climate smart food. I had no idea how we can actually implement this, but I think it's starting to become a little bit more clear that it is possible. This whole idea of localization and sort of locally leveraging this entrepreneurship model, I think can work. So I had doubts actually many times that we could move forward, but it is because I have connected with people like Andrew and so many people around the world over the period of the past 10 or more years that it's really starting to crystallize that it is possible. But it's a matter of motivating the youth, because I think there's not enough I guess the word would be people don't feel, I feel like a lot of people don't think it's possible that the change can be created. But there are tipping points culturally that can happen, and you don't need a whole lot of people in a society to realize the change before things really change quickly. I think the numbers are, they always stated something like 10 or 15% or something. People need to change a whole paradigm, and that happens. You've seen that many times in the past with other systems. Like I give the example of smoking. Like everybody used to smoke in the 70s and 80s, and then suddenly there was this change. I remember, like just suddenly, like nobody's smoking anymore, and everybody's banning smoking inside, and all this stuff was happening. So it seemed to happen like almost overnight. We almost didn't notice it, but it like within a year, there was no more like smoking in bars or businesses or all this stuff. I remember growing up, or when I got my first job, everybody in my office smoked. But a few years later, there was not a one. So that kind of shift can happen, and it almost sometimes happens just organically. But I think we're at the cusp of a shift in the way we produce our food, and it's going to be local, and it's going to be hopefully more healthy, climate smart, as I say. And
well,
I think there's a lot of companies that are also looking at this, a lot of governments, a lot of NGOs.
Yeah, and I also want to interject, because Ryan at the beginning, you know, was talking about seeds and whatnot, and that's just one of the things that you mentioned, but that's going to be really crucial, because if we're talking about systemically having all children eventually, let's say within a 5-year plan, if not, you know, in our school systems ongoingly kind of interacting in these kinds of spaces, we're going to need good quality soil, good quality seed to make those things possible in local, you know, places around the schools, in urban centers, and also elsewhere, you know. And I mentioned that I'm involved with EcoVillage development. So for there as well, you know, one of the, even though it's a Maui Aloha EcoVillage initiative that we're beginning in Hawaii, we're, you know, I've got a group of 30 people who are meeting with me once a week between the Kingston and Ottawa area that are looking to purchase 50. It's like a new paradigm after COVID, because people don't want to live in high rises. They want to have their feet on the ground, be able to have fresh air. be able to have their own space, but be able to look at their neighbor and say, hey, I've got extra bananas. Oh, I've got extra kale. Let's switch. So people are looking for different ways of retiring. And in that particular area, Perth, Smith Falls, Kingston, and whatnot, intergenerational communities are coming together and wanting to have permaculture, permaculture principles and biodynamic, aquaculture and vermiculture and all kinds of things. Scientists, like really smart people who are transforming. So I believe that whenever we get on a call, there's a reason for everybody to be there. Some of the reasons we know and we announce, but there's so many more from each of us that we can contribute. So, Ryan, I'd love to be in touch, because I think that's going to be an important part of an affordable process for an affordable process in this conversation.
Yeah, it was really great to meet all of you, and I just needed to join for this meeting because I needed to gauge the scope and the caliber of what you guys are about and what you're doing. And now I can see it's very, very global, and it's huge what you're doing, and the integrity is there, the educational prestige is there within all of you guys. You're just an amazing group of people. And I just wanted to clarify, when I mentioned seeds, that's just the name of the company. We're called Seeds for Eco Communities. And I'm not sure who was just speaking last. I forget your name.
Stephanie, yeah. Sorry.
Stephanie, yeah. No, that's okay. Everything you just mentioned about like eco-villages, that's like a huge part of what we're doing. So we're getting content and educational material out to eco-villages and sustainable communities, off-grid projects. I was actually recently living just a few minutes north of where I currently am at an off-grid healing center. And the owner there is a master herbalist, and she's very well versed in off-grid technology. So yeah, you're right, we're all meeting for a reason, and it's a huge breath of fresh air. And yeah, the sky is the limit. I'm excited to, now that I'm connected with you guys, I'll learn more and more about what you do as individuals. And yeah, again, I've been personally networking for the last 10 years with people who believed in saving the planet. So I'm a young guy, but I'm a little bit ahead of my time. And a cool thing that I have noticed is sustainability and eating properly and all of that stuff. It is actually becoming cool. Just over the last year, like, I mean, it's seriously taking off among the younger crowd. So people in their late teens. It's becoming very fashionable now to not destroy everything. Finally.
I think people like Greta Thunberg were actually quite influential, raising some awareness, not just of climate, but then there's a lot of youth out there that are having these conversations that are not even in our radar.
Well, before you guys leave, Ryan, as I said, I'm happy to be the host here, but this is your, the group here. I'm a host, but in the last, I guess, week or so, just because of my own research for solutions in Africa, I found an agency called USAID, USAID, that works in all countries around the world to deal with these issues that we're dealing with right here. So I'm going to take it upon myself to be that person to connect the dots. They are intended not just to increase exports from the United States into other countries, but to work within other countries for developing opportunities for there to be international exchange. But because they're focused on a new paradigm, not aid, but trade, the idea is that we can empower local communities. And so with the new Biden administration coming in, I find myself living in a district where my congressperson, Karen Bass, is the chairperson of the Global Health Committee, as well as for Africa. So I'm in a good place where things that you're doing there, perhaps I can help connect the dots here. And so I look forward to working with you in any way I can.
That is wonderful. And wow, again, just a another testament to how global this whole thing is that you guys are a part of, and I guess that now I'm a part of. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Actually, I don't want to jump in here. I'm only a Goodwill ambassador, but I would maybe offer that that you might want to have a conversation, Ryan, with Andrew, because Andrew is the sort of our center point for the ad hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors. And if you might be interested in being another Goodwill ambassador here.
Absolutely, yeah.
We might, for a certain thing that you have an interest in, or a certain geography. I'm geographically focused. I actually focused on organizations. So the Francophonie, the Commonwealth, and what we call Turtle Island, which doesn't have its own organization, but we're focused on the indigenous communities, especially of Turtle Island, which includes, of course, North America, basically, Canada, the US, Mexico, but we also include Latin America, which is, of course, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean, as being part of Turtle Island. So the Francophonie is an existing organization. It's based out of France. The Commonwealth is an existing organization. It's actually the Queen and the Queen's family, the royal family, that created that organization. And of course, Canada is a member of both the Francophonie and the Commonwealth. So Fule mentioned the Francophonie specifically because she's in Quebec. She's from the Cameroon, which is a Francophonie country, but also a Commonwealth country. So the idea is that we want to create a networks of all these countries that are members of existing organizations. We're not reinventing the wheel. We just go to the existing organization, except in the case of North America, Turtle Island, which doesn't have a formal organization associated with it. But cool. It's something we would like to potentially create with the indigenous communities across Turtle Island.
Wonderful.
Right?
So Ryan, in the
ourselves.
Chat, I apologize, Lloyd. In the chat, Lloyd, in the chat, Ryan, I put in 2 links there. One link is to the 5 Points Youth Foundation. We're a member of the United Nations Global Compact, and that's free for any non-governmental organization to join around the world. And also our own challenge with the group that Lloyd mentioned, the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors. I'm tasking all of us to make a commitment to add another 10,000 members of the United Nations Global Compact of civil society. That includes non-governmental organizations, educational institutions, labor organizations, business associations, and municipalities. And the idea is that there are now 13,000 major multinational corporations and only 3,000 civil society members. So the idea, if we bring in 10,000 new members, we can balance and hold accountable the major multinationals. And also, there's going to be at least $12 trillion a year spent on addressing the Sustainable Development Goals. So I believe we need to be at the table instead of on the menu as far as how that narrative happens. So anyway, I put in the link there to the strategy they have for growing their local networks from 2021 to 2023. And so I ask you to take a look at that. And if there's ways that we can find, we can assist that effort, I believe it would be possible for us to use existing tools and resources for our own objectives. And at the same time, we can actually become the ones that create the narratives by our own social media and our own reality series using social media, because there are 5 corporations that own 95% of the world's media. So it's up to us to take a page out of the Trump book and get more promotion and publicity than advertising.
Amazing. I am very, very, very well connected with the film industry in British Columbia. I know some of the big game changers out there, and my dad is also a set designer for the Vancouver AHIABGA-TV union. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, everything you mentioned is so revolutionary. I guess I'll leave you guys with the part of the lyrics of a song. It's very simple. The leaders will follow when the people lead.
Well, on that note, you may be familiar with a band called Earth, Wind, and Fire, perhaps. You may have
I
heard of
don't
that.
think so, but they sound up my alley.
Well, here's the thing. The son of Philip Bailey, his name is Sir Bailey. He's part of our team here. He's also an educator, and he has put together an organization called Art Life Live. And the idea is to have kids and youth to work behind and in front of the microphones and cameras to be the ones that become the ones that create our narratives. And we empower them with tools and resources and stories so that their content is what we then use to promote around the world. So I'd love to connect you together whenever we have that opportunity.
Wow, that sounds perfect. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have a conversation separately. I just want to mention our spark, literally for creating, for instance, an organization here in Toronto called PodNet GTA, and for the work we do is also around this idea of the Spark Pod and the creation of these Spark Learning Centers. So these are the all year round classrooms, just like the all year round conference on the virtual platform. We now have potential for all year round gardens in schoolyards. So this is called the Spark in the Schoolyard program, which is what they're rolling out in Bermuda. And so in Bermuda, the Spark classroom will also be a place in the community where artists can come out and produce their content. So it's not just like a daytime classroom, schoolroom for the kids. It becomes a studio where content producers can actually use the space and generate revenue from using that space to produce content. So it becomes a music studio, becomes a film studio, becomes a place of living for the community and a living space, because it is actually a regenerative building. So that again ties into this idea of let's connect. Like for instance, I don't have any connections with there's a big film industry in Toronto. I have no connections there. So I don't know I don't know my entry point yet, but maybe there's an entry point through the Vancouver film studios.
Absolutely.
The Vancouver film industry, that we can then connect our programs at U of T to the film industry down on the waterfront, because they have their big film studios there. That's what we'd want to do, to get them involved in producing our narratives.
Yep. Vancouver and Toronto as film industries are like two peas in a pod. People travel back and forth between the cities it's basically one industry between those two cities. That's why my dad lives in Vancouver. He started in Toronto, and you can just basically switch right over. And a lot of people do that, I guess. Yeah, so there's definitely an opening there. And the people that I know besides my dad in the movie industry, I didn't meet them because of my dad's involvement in film. I met the film industry people in British Columbia because of a shared spiritual mission. We all connected through things like sustainability and helping the earth. So yeah, it's a really cool thing that's being coordinated.
Yeah. So I mean, eventually we should introduce you to people like Corin Smith in Bermuda. So that's he was connected to me through Andrew, but also to try to create these networks of content producers and really connect the organizations that are the creatives. And that's a really important part of our network that we're trying to create. So we have what we call a heptamatrix partnership. So it started out with, can we move beyond the public-private partnership, which is basically public-private partnership, three partners.
Oh,
we went to 4 and then 5 and 6 and 7 eventually.
Housekeeping note. One, Stephanie, I think you had something to say. And two, we've been on this about 2 hours, so I need to wrap this up for another call in about 8 minutes. So just to give you a heads up.
Yeah.
Stephanie, do you have something you want to contribute?
Second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think this is a very important part of the conversation. I know at Maui Aloha Project, we've seen over the past 5+ years, that it is the artists that are going to bring this transformation about. The artists have been silenced in schools. You know, that and the outdoors are the elements that have been removed from education. And I know that one of the sustainable development goals for the future, that one of the things that we talk about in addition to empathy and is creativity, that we've kind of not encouraged that. And it's the artists that are, that I see are coming together, or perhaps they had different career, they spent their years, doing, X, Y, or Z career, and they suppressed their creative side. And now we're at a point where communities are going to have new opportunities to come together through this kind of creative opportunity, whether it's film, whether it's graffiti or art or writing or music. These are the ways that youth and community youths are gonna are reconnecting anyways, even through social media, not through social media. And it's a great way. I think that you having the 5 Points Youth is huge, and there's so many youth climate action groups, and there's so many youth artist groups. Like, I think that it's going to really represent validating that side of people, and I always talk about holistic development and holistic education. We've ignored the spiritual aspects. We've ignored artistic, we've ignored physical. We only kind of focus on intellectual, and that's gotten us in trouble. And I too, Ryan, meet with many spiritual groups who, have been wanting to bring about this transformation. Aside, the mindfulness industry, just in the States alone, is a $10 billion industry. So why are we all craving this mindfulness? Because we're way too busy. And what we're talking about is we're most busy and we're anxious. The statistics for anxiety and depression and suicide for youth is staggering. Canada has the third highest youth suicide rate in the world. These are issues.
Wow.
Really?
So nobody talks about it. And it's representational of all populations, all SES groups in Canada. So these are reasons for us to be spearheading some change. People are craving spirituality, not necessarily religion. I'm not here to distinguish that. People are craving stillness. People are craving just to kind of stare at the sky. People are craving, and I see with the EcoVillage initiative, people are craving just to come together in circle, and even all you have to do is put a bonfire or put out some coffee and be together. People are craving this, and that's it. So we have a many-layered agenda, all of us together.
Yeah. I'm also a lifelong musician and media artist. So I sing and play guitar. I actually specifically play spiritual music. I've hosted hundreds of events for that type of stuff. And I've been designing media and digital art since I was 8 years old.
So eventually, I just wanted to mention, I'd like to introduce you to Generation Hip Hop as well, and what they do, because that's connected into our network as well.
As usual, Lloyd took the words out of my mouth, right? So, among other things, I'm the brand ambassador for Generation Hip Hop that introduced them to us, so I can connect you directly. But I'm also on the National Advisory Board of Universal Hip Hop Museum. And so they meet here at my location on the West Coast, the organizing committee for the West Coast. But music is such an important part of this. If you have 3 minutes, I'd really like to share with you a video from the hip hop community about the Sustainable Development Goals. And then I'd like to make one comment. So let me do this right now. It's becoming one of my favorite videos.
Cool.
And yeah, just 1 second here. And of course, I moved my screen, so I got to put it back here and find it. Just 1 second. Okay. Probably here, yes. Oh, I need to stop so you can hear my screen, hear the sound. Let me do this one more time. Share screen. Oops. Share screen, and yes, share sound. That would be helpful. Share.
The United Nations is an organization with goals of peace and sustainable development around the world. Their mission is huge, but we're breaking it down in 2 minutes. 17 sustainable development goals.
We lost the sound again.
Yes, so did I. Well, hold on this moment.
Let's get to them, because the more you know.
Technology is only great.
Oh, look, in some corners of the world today, people are living on $1 a day. Hey, that's not how it ought to be. So go one, eliminate poverty, and go two, root out hunger across the globe. There's 800 million people hungry if you want to know. Number 3 is health and well-being, and getting people the health care that they need in.
If you can hear me, just bear with me here. My system froze.
Yeah, it is a little bit frozen. But, you'll have the link in the chat. And,
Learning in school, what a hard to go for.
So if you do need to get going, Andrew, that you can maybe play it the next time.
Well, sure. If you can hear me, yeah, the link is in the chat if you would like to review it.
So I think this is kind of a wrap up here. We've had a long meeting today. I think we've accomplished quite a few good things. I'm going to follow up. I have a few things to do today to finish up with all the stuff I need to do with the groups. I have some action items, obviously. The other thing is actually to introduce and have a conversation, especially with Stephanie, with regard to the establishment, I think, of the learning, the virtual learning network. As well with you, Andrew, I'd like to include you, of course, in that conversation, because it seems like there might be another entry point into the EZ Expo platform with this new contact in Africa. So she was another member of Matt's discussion group. And she's the one that came along and said, let's create a network of learning institutions around the world through the EZ Expo platform. So I saw that post from her in Matt's group, and I said, look, let's have a conversation because we're doing this anyway.
Well, you go right ahead. If I'm able to assist, I will. But I haven't been able to retrieve what I was trying to share. I have an existential threat here in the United States as a person of African American descent. There was just a study done last month that was released. In the United States, there are of 50 states, there are 0 states that are addressing the Sustainable Development Goals. And here specifically for the Black and Indigenous communities, these are the ones that are left furthest behind. So part of my incentive for addressing these issues is very personal. It's really a matter of fatality, because the mortality rate for those people of African descent in particular, and of indigenous descent, are the highest in the world. And so I really take it upon my personal challenge to address these issues, because I'm a dead man talking, basically. I'm 63 years old, and my days, I don't want children born into the world I was born into. I survived an abortion attempt by my mother because she didn't want me born into this world. So I take it as a personal mission to change this before I get out of here. So anything I can do to help, just count me in, I'm ready.
Well, I will also do anything I can to assist on that journey. I have a similar relationship with death. Both of my brothers passed away in a drowning about 9 years ago, right when my whole awakening began. So it's dear to my heart to make some real change on this planet as well.
So just as a final thing, did you want to say anything today, Bruce? We haven't heard from you at all.
Only if you unmute yourself, Bruce.
Just been listening to you guys to see how my mess could fit into your mess.
Just message us.
It's all one hot mess. It's ours to work with, Bruce.
I'm last week I was elected to represent the citizens to our local table de consultation. So you have all the OBNLs, you have all the education, school boards, economic boards, police department, and so I'm sitting on the seat and like then I'm getting all these emails on the CA and they're like, do you approve this or not? The employees can't take the day off. It's just so I'm trying to figure out like how I should act in that. But a lot of it is these soft skills, eh? And so I guess these soft skills are important to some people. So I'm taking the weekend off, going to Quebec City with my girlfriend, who's also my coach. She's a Syrian refugee who works for the World Bank in human development in the MENA and North African region. So it's kind of fun. It's going to be good. We're going to be discussing a lot of stuff and try to figure out the best way for me forward.
Excellent. Well, part of our team is also in MENA, and Dr. Tamara Omar, for example, she's working with the team in Pakistan that just had a meeting this morning. It's called the Global Women's Development Network. So they're planning their 2022 event starting today. So of course, Bruce will extend that invitation to your partner and coach as well, because the idea is that it's important for these people from countries that are now underrepresented to be represented by the people from those countries, wherever they are in the world.
Cool.
All right, Lloyd, so I'll turn it over to you to wrap it up. This is, again, balls in your court, Lloyd. I'm just here to facilitate.
Yeah, so I would like to connect with Ryan also, I guess, on WhatsApp, and I can invite you to certain groups depending on your interests, because we have many groups, including of course, the Unity Learning Network and the Unity Gardens Network, which is what this call was all about, with Joan and others to establish these gardens, establish the learning network that's associated with that. And that is overall what the Global Unity Network is right now, the network of networks, really trying to bridge all of these disciplines and our skills so that we can create the regenerative world we all would like to see in the future. But let's start now with what we have. It's the Sustainable Development Goals, and say, look, we've got a set of goals till 2030. Let's see how many we can actually implement in our own communities with the entrepreneurs that are among us and are passionate about achieving.
Well, with that note, Lloyd, if you want to save the chat, all the content, if you want to save the chat, Ryan, or Bruce or Stephanie or you, Lloyd, all the information is there. There's usually an hour post-production. If I have time, I'll go through here and put it out and make it more accessible, and I'll send it out to the email list for those people that were invited today that weren't able to attend. So that, I think.
Okay, thank you. I'm getting a call in right now as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. The Edfu Foundation have been happy to bring you this weekly event. Also in the chat, guys, You'll find the link to tomorrow's show as well, or tomorrow's webinar, and you're all invited. This is Andrew Williams Jr. with the Edfu Foundation, 5 Points Youth Foundation, and others, wishing you a fantastic day. And that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes.